as opposed to hiring a moving guy. He lifted the air conditioner himself and blew his disc in his back. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen the stats, but Bobby Grich, phenomenal defensive player. I mean, arguably one of the best second basemen of all time, and a huge man. So back in the day, second basemen were like Walt Weiss or Steve Sachs or 5'9", 165, and Bobby Grich was 6'3", 215, large man, broad shoulders, huge hands. He would turn the double play and no one messed with him. He was a really solid player.
And he's got several Gold Glove. Bobby Grich. So the two second basemen with the highest WAR, not in the Hall of Fame, are Bobby Grich and Lou Whitaker. And I contend that both of them should be in the Hall of Fame, because when you compare, and I've done a show on the Extra Time show on both Whitaker and Bobby Grich, their careers are as good or better than several other infielders, and probably the easiest one is Bill Mazeroski and Louis Aparicio. Those are probably the two easiest comparisons. But those guys were as good defensively as both of those guys, and both of those guys could hit. And Grich had, like you said, Grich had some power. But before I give it back to you, Mississippi State lost to the eventual College World Series champions, Miami Hurricanes, in 1985, and Mississippi State finished third.
No, that's a good run. Okay, switching gears again, and this might be a real curveball for you. I'm not sure you know this about me, and I'm not sure your knowledge about it, but even though I was a diehard fan and lived and died with definitely Lakers, kind of Dodgers, definitely Rams in the 80s, my team by far was the Los Angeles Kings. I was a huge hockey fan. Now get this, I do not know how to skate. If I went to an ice rink, I'd have to hold the rail because I can't stand up on skates. So I have know nothing about it. But we learned to love hockey in high school. And if you think the Angels didn't draw much, the Kings were pathetic. I mean, back then the Forum held 17,005 for basketball and 16,505 for hockey. And the Kings would average like 4,000 or 5,000 people. And so we could either sit right on the ice or way back. But eventually they got good. And the guy that made them good by far was Wayne Gretzky. And this was back in the day when certainly hockey was not televised, so you really didn't see much of anything. But I watched Gretzky play for the Kings, 50, 80 times, who knows, a lot. And I've never seen a guy better. And talk about controlling a game. You watched him, you're like, wow, this is by far and away the best guy on the ice, probably the best guy who's ever played the game. And he would give the Kings so many good chances to score every game. They didn't always score because they weren't that good, but he was great. The other guy I really liked was kind of interesting dude. His name was Dave Taylor, and he was a winger. And he was interesting because he had a really bad stutter, so he couldn't speak very well, although he became the general manager of the Kings. But he's one of these guys that fit the mold. 6'1", 6'2", 205, good scorer, good player, but also good fighter. No one messed with him. Really good, solid guy, and he was my guy. But the one thing I want to say about hockey, and I don't know how much you watched it, because I know when you were growing up, San Jose did not have a team. But I've seen, a lot of games, and whether it's football or basketball or baseball, World Series, Super Bowl, Finals, NBA, nothing, I will say nothing compares to the excitement of an overtime playoff hockey game, because it's sudden death. And you're watching this game and you're rooting for your team. And hockey is kind of like a game momentum, picture soccer, but on skates going fast, back and forth. And you get the puck and your team goes, and if you score, the game's over. But if you miss and it's a long rebound, the other team goes the other way. And watching those games was just breathless. And I know the NFL is very exciting. I mean, they've NFL and NBA are quite skilled at getting the excitement out of a game and last second stuff, and it's great. But boy, if you could bottle the emotion and the sheer intensity, passion, and everything about sports that's good is in an NHL playoff game overtime because it is, I mean, really, you can barely catch your breath. If you're vested, I'm not saying just watch the game. I've never been to a hockey game, but if you're just watching a game to watch it, it's probably not the big of a deal. If you have a team in the game that you love, like I did for the Kings, I mean, I'm telling you, man, it was hard to watch. It was the kind you'd scream and yell and you could barely catch your breath. It was great. But you're not a hockey fan, right?
Well, it's funny that you say that because on the ramp up of the Sharks coming, all of a sudden we started getting, you could watch, they would have hockey games on cable. And so in a weird way, and I don't even remember how this happened, I became a Ron Hextall fan.
Okay.
You know, goalie for the Flyers.
He was a fighter.
And I think part of it was he scored a goal. And I thought that was just kind of cool. Like, oh, the goalie scored a goal. So before the Sharks actually started, but we knew they were coming, you know, I just, oh, okay, you know, this Ron Hextall guy sounds kind of cool. And I think I had, you know, we collected sports cards. So I ended up getting, you know, one of his cards. And I just like, oh, this guy's cool. He's young. He's just coming in the league. You know, he was kind of hardcore. So you thought, you know, that was kind of cool. But the Sharks, before they'd even played a game, I went out and got a hat because it was like, oh man, this is cool. This is, you know, I thought their colors were cool. I thought their logo was cool. And so I'd go sport their hat. And everyone was like, oh, you're a Sharks fan. And they'd come up to me, you know, do I like hockey? And I knew nothing about hockey, like zero. I just thought, hey, we're finally getting a team in Northern California and I'll get behind them. And yeah, I just thought, the Sharks are cool. There's old school pictures of me running around with a Sharks hat on, and I even had a Sharks, you know, T-shirt. And then in '94, when they beat the Red Wings, when they were the 8th seed, and it was the first time that 8th seed beat a 1, and they beat the Red Wings, and Artis Urbe was the goalie for the Sharks. And so, you know, I'm a casual Sharks fan, and I'm a casual, you know, follower of hockey, and you know the Sharks had some runs where they were the President's Trophy winners, and they'd lose to the Blackhawks or lose to the Kings or lose to whomever over the last 10-20 years now. So when the Sharks are good, you know, I'm a bandwagon. I'll jump on, but I'm not a day-to-day hockey follower.
Well, you know what's interesting about Ron Hextall is he was one of the most aggressive goalies in terms of fighting. So back in the day, the gloves would be dropped and all the guys, the two fighters would fight and the other guys just grab each other. Every now and then the goalies would skate to center ice and grab each other. Every now and then, maybe 2 times a year, the goalies actually throw down and get in a fight. But Ron Hextall, he would fight players. He would fight like a defenseman or a forward. If they got too close to his net, he'd slash with his stick and they'd push him, and he'd just drop his huge mitts and start swinging. So yeah, he was a funny guy. But it's kind of fun to see where someone's so good they tilt the field almost. That's what I was reading a article about number 11 on the Cowboys, the guy who's really good on defense. I can't think of his name right now. The linebacker
not Danny White.
Not Danny White, no. And
he's number 11.
he's not playing anymore. Anyways, they're talking about how good a linebacker he is, and Belichick or Parcells, one of those guys, saying, "Yeah, he's no Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor tilted the field. Like when he was on the field, everything went our way." And I felt that way about Gretzky. I mean, Koufax was like that because when he pitched, so he pitched every 4th or 5th day, he dominated, and so did Juan Marshall, and so did Bob Gibson, and so did Tom Seaver, guys like that. But hockey, Wayne Gretzky was on the ice like half the game, and he just, it was like he had something. And I think really, it's funny because you're trying to talk about good athletes. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the toughest. Whether he's the smartest, I have no idea, but he was the best.